Hi, this is John from Chicago. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to do a review of the FuriBee H801 quadcopter. This is kind of a neat little quadcopter. FuriBee made a fantastic quadcopter, really popular with probably thousands and thousands sold. It's the FuriBee F36. I did several reviews on those and showed how to modify it with a small camera and VTX to go back to goggles. But this is about half the cost because you don't need goggles. You just use your phone as the viewing device. Comes in the box is the quadcopter itself, a radio transmitter, a 260 milliamp hour battery, a charger, 4 extra propellers, and a screwdriver. You will need to download the app for your phone. I have an iPhone and found it in the App Store just doing a search for FuriBee. I downloaded it. It's quite simple to use. When you plug in the battery, the quadcopter sends out a Wi-Fi signal, which you have to set as a default on your phone. You picks up the signal and it shows what the camera is looking at. You do have the option of pushing the on button on the screen, and then you have your controls on your phone, so you could use your touch pad to use it for your joysticks to actually fly. I think it's a little easier using the radio remote that they give you to fly with versus the screen, but it can be done. It took me 1 or 2 times and then I got it down so I could fly it around fairly good. First thing you do is plug in the battery here. It's blinking, so that's sending out a signal, and you look for that signal on your Wi-Fi. On mine it came out as a UAV, so I push that. Link to the Wi-Fi, there it goes. Then I go to the app that I loaded up. I looked in the App Store for Apple under FuriBee, and I downloaded it. Then we go like that. Then we connect. And that's the camera, what the camera is seeing. Okay, I'm going to put this down and fly it with the remote, just line of sight to begin with. So, put the camera going. Okay, push the button down. Whoa. See how the altitude hold's doing. There we go. It's staying now. So we go out. Looks like it's dropping. To give it some up. And I'm giving it up every so often because the altitude hold isn't holding it. Up. This is on the low rate. There's 3 rates. There's 30%, 60%, and 100%. So, and I'll put it on the 60%. Oh yeah. It has a little bit more of a tilt to it. I just finished the line of sight portion of the flight review, and now I'm going to what they call first person view, FPV. That's where you're flying the quad by looking into a set of goggles and you're determining when to turn based on what you're seeing through the goggles. It's a lot of fun and it's quite the rage, so this gives you a cheap way to get started with FPV flying. So if you're buying this quad, the FuriBee H801, you're probably buying it because it's a cheap way to learn FPV, since it uses your own phone as a screen instead of needing to buy a $40 to $80 set of FPV goggles. It is nice to be able to spend only $30 instead of $70 to get into indoor FPV flying, but by using the phone Wi-Fi, it has some drawbacks. The Wi-Fi signal has around a quarter second of lag, which makes it more difficult to fly FPV instead of with the 5.8 gigahertz goggles that most people use to learn and fly FPV. Flying slow, I could get around the lag because it still gives you time to react. So you should be able to fly FPV with this little lag. One of the big advantages of the FPV Wi-Fi signal, or using the signal, is the quality of the video recording in the phone is a lot better than what it is on an FPV goggle using 8.5 gigahertz. Other problems with this quadcopter are it has altitude hold. You would think that would be a good thing since this is meant for beginners, and beginners, the fewer things that they have to adjust, the easier it is to fly, but the altitude hold does not work good. It drops quite a bit. As a result, you need to use the throttle to compensate. And when it has altitude hold, the middle quarter of throw on the throttle is reserved to set it for altitude hold. So you really have to push the throttle up above that point or below it to get it to go up and down. So it's pretty jerky. I would probably prefer this without altitude hold at all. The field of view for FPV is also too narrow in the camera. It's should be a wider field of view so you could tell where you're flying. It is flyable, but I think it would be better with a wider field of view. Another item is this quad is heavier and it's underpowered. It weighs 27 grams without a battery, where the FuriBee F36, which is a fantastic flyer, and with a small 3-gram camera, weighs 9 grams less, or 18 grams total. Would have been nice if they could have shed 3-4 grams of weight off of this. I think it would be a better flyer. The big question is a FuriBee H801 worth buying? Well, I would either say the jury is out or it is not worth buying. I personally would recommend spending the extra $40. It's well worth it, and buy a tiny whoop with goggles for about $70 to $80. I think you'll be ahead in the long run since you could use those goggles in the future. You don't have the delay, and it's easier to fly. I think this will give beginners a hard time. I was having difficulty flying through the hoops. I would say I could only make about 1 out of 3, where if I had my tiny whoop, I could probably make them maybe miss 1 or 2 out of about 10. So I think it'd be a lot easier and better experience spending the extra money and buying a ducted fan like the FuriBee F36, putting a camera on it, or I think they make some now with cameras, or we even go to the next step, which would be to buy a one that's pre-made. They run about $50 to $60, and then they would connect to a hobby grade radio, such as a Fly Sky or a Tyrannus, or one of the other hobby grade radios out there. That radio would cost an extra $50 to $100, but you would have a setup that would stay with you. So it's a big investment up front. I can see why people would want to only spend the $30, but I would say no. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave those below. I've also put some links to some other videos I did on the tiny whoops.